The Michigan Man Podcast, episode 173. The Little Brown Jug stays in Ann Arbor, and the Wolverines ready themselves for a trip to Happy Valley for a battle with Penn State. That and more on this week's show.
Oh man, Euchre's been broadcasting for 27 years. I have never seen anything like this. They need 2 inches. Dennis Franklin, the quarterback, taking a long con from center. He hands off to Shuttlesworth 5, and it's down to the end zone. Touchdown! Touchdown, Dennis Franklin! Oh my God, Dennis Franklin fooled everybody. He fooled me. He fooled the entire Ohio State team. Kneeling is Larry Gustafson. Attempting will be Super Toe. Super Toe will kick the 30-yard field goal. It's kicked to send over in. It's a tied-up ball game. 10-10. Okay. Under center is Wangler at the 45. He goes back. He's looking for a receiver. He throws downfield to Carter. Look at those Wolverines. 95 Wolverines going in the end zone. Carter's got the pass. In the air, it's done. Buford is going out of his mind. I have never seen anything like this in all my 40 years of covering Michigan football.
This is the Michigan Man Podcast. On GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine, for Wolverine fans from coast to coast. Go Blue and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. The Wolverines did what they needed to do on Saturday in taking care of Minnesota, and now they prepare for a road trip to Happy Valley in what will be a crazy homecoming atmosphere at Beaver Stadium. On today's show, we'll check in with Penn State radio play-by-play voice Steve Jones. He'll get us up to speed on this week's opponent and also share his thoughts on just what's going on with the Penn State program. That's next on our visitor segment. On Michigan Game Day, we'll be joined by John Borton from the Wolverine. But first, let's start as we always do with my view from Section 17. After watching the first 4 games, my thoughts were the Team 134 has a ton of raw, young talent. They have been electrifying at times and then absolutely mystifying at other times. The team has no identity yet. Saturday against Minnesota, the offensive game plan was just what Devin Gardner and the offense needed. Simple, with an emphasis on the power run game and sprinkling in a safe passing attack. For the most part, it was executed very well. The most reassuring result from Saturday's game, 0 turnovers. Devin managed the game well. Devin Funchess added an intriguing wrinkle to the attack by lining up wide and in the slot. The offensive line blocking was better, and freshman Derek Green is starting to get more carries. It wasn't an explosion. More importantly, it was a confidence builder. A smart plan from a very wise offensive coordinator in Al Borges. The defensive line got pushed off the ball far too often by a mediocre Minnesota front. I'm still concerned, but I think Coach Hoke and Coach Madison will have this young front improving each week. The linebacker play was pretty good, with the exception of some lapses in pass coverage. The secondary play remains soft at times, but overall it's been pretty good, especially from Blake Countess. Improvement. I think that's what we all saw on Saturday. A good game plan that was executed well and will help build confidence in this young team moving forward. I think that's all we could ask for. I know we all want this team to explode on both sides of the ball and give us what we're waiting for from all of this talent. But I think patience is still necessary. We're getting there, but nothing worth having comes easy, and we've heard that before. So hang in there. I think better days are ahead, and I hope one of them takes place this Saturday in Happy Valley. It will be one tough challenge for this young team, but they already know that. Penn State took one on the chin in Bloomington on Saturday. This is still a team that has plenty of talent, but depth is becoming a concern due to the lack of scholarships as a result of the NCAA sanctions. Rest assured they will be ready to rock on Saturday at home. It's homecoming and it's a whiteout. Steve Jones is the radio play-by-play voice for Penn State football. and he joins us next on our visitor segment here on the Michigan Man podcast on GBMW Go Blue, Michigan Wolverine. With us on our visitor segment today is Penn State radio play-by-play voice, Steve Jones. Steve, great to have you on the show.
Hey, it's great to be with you.
Well, Steve, from a Penn State perspective, there wasn't much to like about Saturday's loss in Bloomington, was there?
No, there really wasn't. First of all, you have to give Indiana credit. They played very well. Their defense had been much maligned coming in. They had not done a great job against the run, but, it should be pointed out that really the two teams that ate up a lot of ground yardage against would happen to be option teams. And Penn State's not an option team. And straight ahead, ball carrying in a game like this, they did a really good job, and they played it well. And offensively, I think Indiana's going to bring a good offense to the table to begin with anyway. And they did that. And they didn't make any big mistakes. And he only threw one interception in the game. Penn State got a field goal out of that. They did a good job at the end of the game of bringing Trey Roberson in and controlling the clock with him. I thought that was an interesting move by them because you always feel like they're a team that's in that 2-minute mode of offense all the time. And to their credit, they played well. Penn State, there's certain things that they're going to have to go back and take care of out of this before they take on without question, the best team they've faced so far this year.
Well, Steve, it was another big day for outstanding freshman Christian Hackenberg. He had 340 yards, 3 TD passes, but the running game was stuffed, and that really isn't a good sign when you're playing a rush defense ranked near the bottom of the conference, is it?
No, it's not. And I think, part of this is that they never really got into a rhythm. Yeah, they scored 24 points in the game, but you never really felt like they were in a rhythm offensively in that game. And that's something that, there's a lot of reasons for that. I mean, you do have a freshman quarterback, as you pointed out, because that does come into play. And you need to have a running game to help balance them off because, that's the quarterback's best friend. But this kid has a lot to him. He only has 5 games under his belt. And when you look at him with just 5 games under his belt, I mean, to his credit, he is somebody that I think has a lot of potential. I think a lot of people would agree has a tremendous amount of potential. And I think that when you look at him, how he sets up, how he handles himself, his upside is tremendous. Now it's a question of getting there.
Well, Steve, you've seen a lot of very good quarterbacks come and go in Happy Valley. But as you've mentioned, this young man looks like he has the tools after only 5 games to be one of the best that's ever played at Penn State, doesn't he?
Well, yeah, he does, as a matter of fact. He does. And I think I've told people that, at the same stage, he's the best quarterback I've seen here at this stage since Kerry Collins. And he hasn't done anything so far, even in the last game, to dissuade that opinion. You watch the way he sets up, you watch the way he scans the field. He does do checkdowns, which is pretty good for an 18-year-old. And, there are going to be moments where he's going to give you like 3 or 4 wows, and every once in a while, because he's 18, he's going to give you a whoa. So, I think he's cut back on his interceptions. That's a big plus. He's taken better care of the football. That's a big plus. And I think that in the end, if he continues on this path, and especially with Bill O'Brien as his coach, because Bill O'Brien is brilliant with quarterbacks, he has a great future in front of him.
Well, the good thing for Christian now is he has some outstanding receivers to throw the ball to, all Big Ten wideout, Allen Robinson, Brandon Mosby-Fielder, who didn't play Saturday, tight ends, 3 of them, Carter, Brenneman, and James. But on Saturday, that running game, as we had mentioned a minute ago, averaged just 1.8 yards per carry against IU, which means the offensive line was struggling. Are there some issues up front with that offensive line?
There shouldn't be, and that's the thing that I sit back and look. I mean, Winak did have 73 yards rushing in the game, for example. So, I mean, Zwinak had a really good game running the football. He averaged 4.5 yards a carry. Straight ahead stuff with him for the most part. I mean, that's his game. That's how he plays. And I thought he played well. But you should not have issues with this offensive line. It's a pretty veteran group, Mike. Urschel's an all Big Ten guard. Donovan Smith, I think, has a chance to be an all Big Ten tackle. Diefenbach's a good player. They kind of rotated with the other tackle. And then Ty Howell's new at center, but Howell, I think, is actually pretty good in that spot. So, I don't know, Mike. You're going to have to tell me. I don't know.
No, we have our own questions on our offensive line. So I know that there are 3 starters back in this offensive line, but through the first 5 games, have they performed pretty well?
Yeah, there are certain moments, for example, when they take Donovan Smith and they pull him, and he gets out there for an offense. Some people pull their guards, and use that. A couple teams every once in a while pull the center. Well, they have the ability to pull him as a tackle, and he is really, really good when he gets out into space, and that really impresses me about him. And so there's certain things they do really well. It's just a question, I think, of getting into a rhythm, balancing the offense, and if they can do that, they'll have some good things happening to them.
Well, the IU offense is going to test everyone it plays, as you saw again Saturday. But Penn State had 4 sacks and was getting pressure from what I saw on Nate Sudfeld. But the linebacking core and the DBs had a tough day with that group of receivers from Indiana, didn't they?
Well, they did. And I think a lot of it is that when you have a team that from snap to release a ball is like 1.7 to 2.9, that's a tough team to defend at times. But I think what this defense has to do is that they have to be more of a difference-making defense where statistically they're fine, but you have to get more takeaways. And they only have 6 takeaways through 5 games so far. Penn State's only started on the plus side of the field 7 times in 5 games so far. So while the defense has done some things really well, they have to be more of a difference-making defense during the course of the game. I think a lot of that has to do with experience. You look at the 2 corners, Williams and Lucas, are coming off their 5th starts in their careers respectively. You look at a guy like Wharton at linebacker, he's in the same spot. 5th start in his career, like the other guys. So there's a lot of youth on that defense. Not like it's untalented because Daquan Jones and Deion Barnes are 2 really good players there.
Well, our guest on our visitor segment today is Penn State radio play-by-play voice Steve Jones. Steve, Coach O'Brien mentioned after the game there were no excuses for what happened on Saturday, and he mentioned the fact that there are 61 scholarship players and over 40 walk-ons that make up this team. The talent and the depth issues due to the loss of scholarships, are they maybe taking their toll right now?
Well, it's designed to take their toll. I think that bothers a lot of people at this stage, that's what's happened so far. And I think that when you look at, it's not just the 61 scholarship players. For example, there are 8 true freshmen that aren't playing, so knock that down to 53 scholarship players that you're really playing with that are available. There's a lot of run-ons that are been able to work their way into the lineup, whether it's a long snapper or a punt returner or somebody like that. So, yeah, has it taken its toll? Yeah, I think at this stage it has taken its toll because it's taken its toll on depth. I mean, it used to be that when Penn State would be sitting there and I would watch a Penn State linebacking core in practice, I'd look at the first team, the second team, and then I'd start seeing a couple guys on third team that I think eventually in a year or 2 would be the guys that would take over. You don't see that at this stage. So that's where you're seeing at this particular point. Sanctions are designed to take a toll on the program. And I think right now they are taking a toll. I think you'll see it take a toll on the program next year as well. But once Philip Ryan gets a full shot and he's on a level playing field, this guy's going to be one heck of a conference coach.
Well, I think everyone in the conference agrees, everyone nationally agrees, Coach O'Brien has done a great job under really difficult circumstances. Do you see him as the guy who's going to stick around, though, to bring this program back to elite status?
Well, everybody asked that question, and I think the question's justified only because he's a talented coach. He's in his early 40s.
He's had great experience at the NFL level, and he's had great success at the NFL level as a coordinator. So he understands that level and how it works. So if I'm sitting there as an NFL team and I'm looking around thinking to myself, okay, there's a guy out there that I think would do a great job for me and I should take a closer look at him. I mean, you'd be smart and take a closer look at him. I know some Penn State people hear me give that answer, they go, oh, I go, hey, guys, you got to put it in looking through the eyes of what the NFL thinks, and you also have to look at the eyes of the aspirations of the individual. He is, I'll tell you this, he's not sitting there running around trying to get jobs. I can tell you that right now. He's completely dedicated and thrown himself into Penn State. I mean, let's face it, anybody calls, you're willing to listen, and he should be willing to listen.
Well, looking ahead to this Saturday, though, Steve, both Michigan and Penn State seem to have one thing in common, at least to me. They're both teams that, when you look at them, really haven't established an identity through 5 games. So it's really tough to get a feel for how this Saturday's game might play out, isn't it?
It sure is. It sure is. When I watch Michigan, I see so much talent. You know, Luan, Gardner, Callan, Funches, Toussaint, and then I can start labeling all the defensive guys. Yet, play a great game against Notre Dame. Everyone knows they struggle with Akron. They struggle with UConn. Had no problem with Minnesota. So I don't know. I really don't know. I think Brady Hoke is one of the truly outstanding coaches in the country. It's great staff. And I think that Saturday's game, especially here, sellout crowd, 110,000, I think it's going to be a really fun game for a lot of people to watch. I think it's going to be very close.
After last week, Penn State has to be so disappointed with the performance on both sides of the ball. Do you expect we're going to see a much different Nittany Lion team this Saturday?
Oh, they're playing at home. They're going to have an opportunity here, I think, with a huge crowd. Emotion is certainly going to play a big role in all of this for them. Now, once you get smacked in the mouth, we'll see what your emotion looks like. But I would expect them to put forward a really strong effort on Saturday. I think they're between the emotion. We talked about how the sanctions have taken their toll, but still, you have some really good frontline guys here that can play football. Just like Michigan had some really good frontline guys that can play football. You have 2 excellent young coaches that I think are the future of the conference, to be frank with you. And I think it's a game that I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. Well, health-wise, how is Penn State heading into this week? Actually pretty good. Ryan Kaiser had to miss the last game, and so he's been out. Brandon Felder missed the last game, as you mentioned earlier. But other than that, they're actually in pretty good shape health-wise, so it's not that bad right now. Well, I know, Steve, Michigan fans are really happy. We were talking about this at the game Saturday. Great to have the Nittany Lions back on the schedule, and even though it's an incredibly tough environment to play in Happy Valley, especially on a early evening game, everyone looks forward to what should be a good game on Saturday. So we thank you for joining us today, Steve. We've enjoyed talking to you, and I look forward to getting you back on next season. I look forward to it, because now they're in the same division, which is the way it should be. And I think over the years, this is going to be a fun, great series for people to get involved with. I think Michigan fans agree with you 100%. Thanks for joining us, Steve. My pleasure. Thanks again to Steve Jones, the radio play-by-play voice of Penn State football, for being our guest on the Visitors segment today. Coming up next, it's Michigan Game Day. Joining us will be the longtime editor of the Wolverine Magazine, John Borton. Here on the Michigan Man podcast on GBMW Go Blue, Michigan Wolverine. Back with us on our Michigan Game Day segment this week, the editor of the Wolverine Magazine, John Borton. John, great to have you back on the show.
Oh, it's fantastic to be with you. I mean, it's a little bit of an upbeat week for Michigan fans, because you had a time where it was a little bit scary there before the bye week, and now they made some strides in this sort of game.
Well, I think we all agree with that after watching homecoming Saturday against the Golden Gophers, and this week preparation for a big road trip to Happy Valley for Penn State. Before we talk about that, though, John, let's look back at some issues or some items from that Minnesota game. Let's start with the offense. Devin Gardner, he managed the game well. His mechanics, to me, looked much improved. And most importantly for him and the offense, no turnovers. It was exactly the kind of game that Devin and the offense needed, wasn't it?
Absolutely, and I'm sure that was the type of game that you went through that entire bye week planning for, hoping for, preparing for. We heard that they were going to simplify the offense a little bit, streamline things, and really put an emphasis on some power running and safe throws to make sure that they didn't turn the football over, and they did not. It was a huge boost for Michigan. You're talking about a situation where Michigan had 25 straight games coming into that with at least one turnover, and to break that streak was positive, not only from the streak standpoint, but just the fact that it makes such a difference. I mean, this was a team that was giving the ball away in situations where it led immediately to a score on pick sixes, or indirectly, but pretty quick on some of these turnovers that set teams up to score, and also it took points off the board for Michigan. They'd make a drive, and then all of a sudden you'd have a fumble, you'd have a pick down deep, and took those chances to score away. So big confidence booster, I think, for not only Devin Gardner, but the entire offense, because they saw an immediate payoff from some of the things that they worked on in the bye week.
Well, one of those immediate payoffs was the offensive line change. Glasgow seemed to hold his own at center. Bryant had a few struggles at left guard in his first start, but overall the interior line blocking was certainly the best we've seen since the Notre Dame game, wasn't it?
No doubt about it, and I think you saw situations where Fitzgerald Toussaint simply had more room to operate than he'd had in a while, and that's a big deal because Minnesota can play defense better overall than Akron and UConn. Fitz Toussaint wasn't getting hit in the backfield, and that had been happening with a fair amount of consistency, or you'd see his brick wall, and you didn't see that in this game. There were some holes, so they weren't all hit perfectly, and they weren't always there, but they were bigger creases to run. Now, people will look at it and say, wait a minute, they only ran for 113 yards. That is true, but at the same time, you had a truncated game. You had a shortened game in the fact that they gave up that 10-minute drive in the first quarter that just, it took the quarter off the board, really. And Michigan came up with a short field touchdown after a fumble recovery early, and then the entire rest of the quarter with, say 50 seconds was taken up because they weren't getting stops on third down. And so you had less chances to run the ball, less chances for that offense to get in a rhythm in the first half, and it really changed the dynamics of the entire first half and got Michigan off to a slower start. But on the whole, I think the move of Chris Bryant, inserting him into left guard, you move Graham Glasgow over to that center position, you gain more size, more physicality, and for at least one game, you saw a development where Fitzgerald Toussaint had more opportunities to get in there and make some yardage.
John, one of the fascinating wrinkles on offense Saturday was seeing Devin Funchess split wide and slotted several times, which really brings another dimension to this offense, doesn't it?
Oh, there's no question about it. What was one of the big questions for this team coming into the fall, and then one of the things that I know rankled the wide receivers coach, Jeff Hecklinski, earlier before the season started, people were saying they don't have playmakers among the wide receivers. Where are the plays going to come from? And he knew for sure that he had Jeremy Gallen. Jeremy Gallen was and is somebody that could be an all Big Ten wide receiver, has performed very admirably. But in order to keep the pressure off him, who else do you have that's going to scare people? Amara Darboh could have been that guy. He goes down in fall camp with an injury. So you're looking around and what's it going to be? How are they going to keep teams from putting so much attention on Gallen that it forces him into difficult situations? And all of a sudden in this game, you see someone who had struggled as a blocking tight end and is still trying to get that part of the game down in Devin Funchess, with the ability to split out as a wide receiver and become a huge target. Go for $150 in terms of yardage and a couple of touchdowns passing. And I just say this kid is someone that is very, very scary for a smaller defensive back to try and defend. And it's exactly what Michigan's looking for in terms of a playmaking wide receiver. Does that mean he's done as a tight end? No. They're going to continue to keep him trying to improve his blocking and be able to place him in there. But the emergence of freshman tight end Jake Butt, who is a little bit better at blocking and can come along, and certainly A.J. Williams is a good blocker at tight end, that frees you up to try a few things, and that's exactly what Al Borges did in this game, using Funchess as a big target, and I think we're going to see more of that, which is good all across the board for the Michigan receiving corps.
Well, Saturday we saw a commitment, John, to the power run game, more carries for Derek Green, and the wrinkle we just mentioned with Devin Funchess. Do you think this is the type of game plan or offensive philosophy Michigan has to employ moving forward?
I think that's where they're going to stay for a while. I think you certainly can expand on some of the things that they did, and they will have wrinkles off of the things that they did. Certainly, you can't just present one look and not continue to grow, and they will. But there was a real back to basics, more careful with the football, throw it only where your receivers can get it type of approach, and I think it worked really well. We saw some different things up front. Even besides the changes they made on the offensive line, all of a sudden you've got Taylor Lewan sprinting over the other end of the line and lining up beside Michael Schofield, and you've got two tackles there beside each other blocking, and they're pulling guys. And so I think they will continue to do different things, but it's all based on this notion that we have to be more ball secure, more conscious of not making the big mistakes that kept teams like Akron, like UConn in the football game. If they had turned it over 4 times against Minnesota, I guarantee you that game would have been coming down right to the wire, and Minnesota would have been in it. The difference is Michigan making strides, and that I think you saw certainly in this game.
John, over on the defense, the linebacking core, led by James Ross and Desmond Morgan, I thought was very good on Saturday. Blake Countess continues his outstanding play, but the defensive line play, that is still a concern, isn't it?
Well, I think it's always a concern as you're going along and trying to get better and trying to get more physical. One of the biggest things they said in the offseason was, we want a 4-man pass rush that's effective and that can do it without blitzing, and you just haven't seen very much of that so far. You've seen some pressure, but you haven't seen the sack totals, and certainly the level of pressure that I think both Greg Madison and Brady Hoke envisioned in the offseason when they were talking about all this. And then you lose Pipkins, the backup nose tackle with an injury in that game. We still haven't heard about Andre Pipkins, how he's what has come out of his MRIs. We expect to probably later today from Brady Hoke, but it didn't look like it was good news when he was coming off the field. They have some depth there, but they have to continue to move forward. I think Greg Madison is going to have to dial up more blitzes in order to get that extra pressure. I just think that this defensive line continues to be a work in progress. They've got some young guys that they've worked in there. You see a Willie Henry coming on as a redshirt freshman, and I think that he is going to get better and better and plug in certainly more now if Pipkin, is out for any kind of an extended period.
We seem to focus an awful lot, fans and media, on the defensive line play and not getting that pressure, not getting that sacks. Earlier today I was talking to Steve Jones, Penn State's play-by-play guy, and he said that's the same concern that Penn State has, but he said, we've seen a lot of offenses so far this year that their game plan is to get rid of the ball in 1.7 seconds, so getting to the quarterback in 3 seconds it's not going to happen. Do you think we're maybe spending too much time worrying about why we're not getting to the passer?
Well, I think there are situations, certainly, that is a big factor. You'll see the quick drops, the quick releases. You'll see the max protection. You'll see everything designed that you are not going to get to our quarterback. And it can be very effective at times, and you get caught up in, they're just not getting there. But in those situations, when teams are doing that, you really have to make them pay, and that's where we're coming down to the linebackers. We're coming down to the secondary creeping up and making sure that if they are getting rid of the football immediately, that some receivers are getting punished. They're not still getting the breakaway gains to then make that an effective strategy. If that's not working for you, if you're getting rid of the ball early and defensive backs are playing tight on receivers and punishing them for those short passes and all, then it changes the dynamic. I think the problem with Michigan so far is you have enough youth back there, and you have enough people that are just kind of still getting worked into the system that I'm not sure that they're trusting a whole lot of man-to-man bump and run coverage, press coverage, those sorts of things that can really help you when teams want to do those sorts of things. So that is something that we've yet to see, and it's certainly something to keep an eye on as they go along through the season.
No, I think we agree with you there, because the coverage, even on Saturday, seemed to be very soft most of the time, didn't it?
It did, and I think that's a strategy right now. I think that you've seen Michigan give quite a cushion and still get burned at times when some big plays were made. I just think that they're being careful with this secondary right now. I think, as they go along, there will be some times where they can press up a little bit more, but it's been obvious. I mean, you watch anybody that watches Michigan's cornerbacks playing off as far as they have, understand that they are willing to give a little bit and make teams go the long way as opposed to giving up the big play. They won the game doing that against Notre Dame, and it's going to be, I think, a continued strategy, but as they go along, they will certainly try to bring some guys up at times, and I think they're going to have to with some teams.
Our guest on our Michigan Game Day segment this week, as we look forward to a big road trip to Happy Valley, is the editor of the Wolverine Magazine, John Borton. John, Penn State took one on the chin in Bloomington on Saturday. Do you think the reduction in scholarships and now the lack of depth resulting from that is starting to be seen in this program?
I think it has an effect, certainly. I don't think that this roster or this team is where Bill O'Brien would have it at this point, who is an extremely good coach, in my opinion. If Penn State wasn't hamstrung a little bit by some of the stuff that has gone on with the NCAA and the scholarships and all of that, and it's more and more it might take an effect over the next couple of years. But I also think Indiana's a pretty good football team, especially offensively. And I think Michigan's going to have its hands full a week farther down the road when Indiana comes up here. So to say, well, how can you lose by 20 points to an Indiana? Well, Indiana's going to push some teams this year. There's no doubt in my mind about that. So I think there's a combination of those two. Indiana's a better team than is given credit for in some quarters this season. And, yeah, you're seeing some effects by Penn State of the things that they've gone through, but I guarantee you they come home for homecoming this week. They have a whiteout at Beaver Stadium. They make it their homecoming. They have a 5 o'clock start, so you're playing in the growing darkness in Happy Valley, and that is going to be a tall order for Michigan going on the road. Michigan hasn't had the best road efforts, and it really needs to have one in this game to come.
Well, even though Penn State was hammered on Saturday, this team really does have some nice offensive weapons, especially in the passing game. Young Christian Hackenberg, who's been outstanding through his first 5 games, 18 years old, he is certainly going to be a test for this Michigan defense, especially the secondary, isn't he?
Oh, I agree. I've watched Christian Hackenberg throw, and he's got the arm. He is gaining experience week by week, and yes, he's made some mistakes that have cost Penn State, but this is a kid that's pretty darn solid, and we know that it's not out of the question for freshman quarterbacks to have that big year. We've seen it at Michigan with Chad Henne, a Pennsylvania native in his own. Christian Hackenberg is someone that cannot be allowed to sit back there and pick you apart all day. And that's why it's going to be interesting to see the defensive approach here. No, they don't want to give up big plays, but they have to dial up something that gets more pressure on a very young quarterback to try and force the sorts of mistakes that can lead to, if not defensive scores, then turnovers that set Michigan's offense up in a good situation. So I'm very interested to see the sort of defensive game plan that Greg Madison rolls out against this youngster who, there's no question, has talent, but has limited experience against this kind of competition in a big game.
Well, John, this is just another game, to me anyway, that seems really tough to predict. Penn State, despite that loss to Indiana, still a pretty darn good football team. The 22 guys they put on the field, very talented overall. Do you see these two teams right now as fairly evenly matched, or is this a game that if Michigan avoids the mistakes like they did Saturday against Minnesota, it should win because they're just more talented?
I think Michigan's more talented. I think if this game was being played in Michigan Stadium, you might see Michigan as a 10-point favorite, maybe a 2-touchdown favorite. But I don't think that is the case, certainly out in State College with just a rabid-on-fire crowd and that road situation. I think it's going to be very difficult for the Wolverines. I think that's going to be a real test. I mean, I know over the summer when we do our message boards at thewolverine.com, and I threw out there that I thought that this was going to be difficult, and I had a lot of people saying you're crazy because no way Penn State is on the decline, this and that. And those same people aren't talking that way anymore because, A, they saw some of Michigan's struggles early in this season and know that certainly Michigan is a flawed team in itself at this point. But also, Penn State has got some weapons. Penn State has proven that they can plug a quarterback in and make it happen. And also, you just take into account that is, if you haven't been to Happy Valley for one of those night games or night-ish games like this, you see that it's going to be a struggle at times for this Michigan team that has to play that high-level game with very limited turnovers to get it done.
Well, every game is big, John. Every win is important in the Big Ten. But this, to me, seems to be really a split-in-the-road game, not for just Michigan, but for Penn State. The schedule for both of these teams gets really tough the rest of the way. And we've said this before through each of the 5 games this season. This Saturday, we should learn a lot more about Team 134, for better or for worse.
There's no doubt about it. I don't think Michigan can or will win the Legends division of this conference unless it wins this game. I just think that there's a loss somewhere along the way in that gauntlet of November games, and Michigan needs to get by this one, needs to come home and beat Indiana and go into that November stretch undefeated. We'll see how it plays out, but it's not one that Michigan can let slip away and still, I think, harbor a high level of confidence that it can get the job done in its goals, which is to make it at least to that Big Ten championship game and have a chance to win it.
I think most of us would agree with you on that. Our guest here on our Michigan Game Day segment this week has been the editor of the Wolverine, John Borton. John, as always, it's been a pleasure, and we look forward to the next time.
Thank you much. Enjoyed it.
Thanks again to John Borton, the longtime editor of the Wolverine Magazine, for being our guest on Michigan Game Day. Coming up next, we wrap it up for another week with Wolverine Quick Hits here on the Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue, Michigan Wolverine. On Wolverine Quick Hits this week, at his Monday presser, Coach Hoke said 0 turnovers is what pleased him most coming out of the Minnesota game. That will be key Saturday in a hostile road environment. He also liked the play of his reconfigured offensive line and mixing Derek Green into the running attack. He's still not happy with the D-line play, but he says the kids are working hard and he saw things that he did like on Saturday. Brady also mentioned that Jake Ryan is very close to being ready. He's not sure when we'll see him, but it sounds like he'll be back in the next week or so. The Docs have already cleared Jake for game action. Bottom line, he still likes this team and thinks they are working hard to improve and that they are improving each week. With the Big Ten season here, you'll need your daily fix of Michigan football. There is no better place to get it than right here at GBM Wolverine. Visit www.gbmwolverine.com and become a member today. We have player profiles, recruiting news, our lively message board, plenty of chatter about this season, and the always popular Monday Night Live chat with all of our talented writers right here from GBM Wolverine. So don't delay, visit www.gbmwolverine.com and join today. Make sure you're in the Wolverine loop this season. Don't forget our show app is now available from a variety of sources. For Android users, we're in the Market Store at Amazon.com. For Apple devices, our app is available in the iTunes Store. Another great way to tune us in for free is with the TuneIn Radio app. You can also hear the show on Stitcher Radio on Demand. Download that free app today at www.stitcher.com. If you get the show from iTunes, please take a moment to leave a comment or rate the show. Thanks again to our guests today, Penn State radio play-by-play guy Steve Jones and John Borton, the longtime editor of the Wolverine Magazine. Next week, we'll be back to recap the Penn State game and scout our next opponent, the rapidly improving Indiana Hoosiers. It just doesn't get any easier the rest of the way. So don't forget to tell your friends about the show and join us again next week. Until then, I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Have a great Wolverine week, everyone. Think victory and enjoy another primetime game this Saturday against Penn State in Happy Valley. I have a feeling it's going to be another nail-biter. So thanks for joining us, and as always, until we meet again next week, go Blue. Thanks for listening to the Michigan Man podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine. You can find us on the web at www.gbmwolverine.com. That's www.gbmwolverine.com. For audio posts or other fan feedback, please call our listener line at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. Email fan feedback to the Michigan Man Podcast at yahoo.com. That's the Michigan Man Podcast at yahoo.com. The Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine is produced at the studios of Robin Lynn Productions, Allen Park, Michigan. The Michigan Man Podcast is not affiliated with the University of Michigan. Go Blue!